Okay, so let's talk about metaphors of globalization. And when I say metaphors, I mean figures of speech that we use to describe something in terms of something else to show how they are alike. So it's like you're comparing two unlike things without using like or as. And today, we'll be relating the metaphorical traits of globalization to the Philippine setting. Now, before we get into the lesson proper, do you know what the learning objectives are? You should be able to identify the metaphors used in describing globalization and explain how these metaphors add depth to our understanding of globalization, how globalization can be described in different ways, and explain how these metaphors work. Okay, so that sounds fun. Let's get into it. The first metaphor that we're going to discuss is globalization is solid for barriers. So when we say that globalization is a solid for barriers, we're emphasizing its restrictive and delimiting characteristics. So just like how a wall confines a certain space, limiting what goes in and out of it, globalization is similarly delimiting. The walls that we see can be physical barriers such as fences or walls made of concrete. They can also be non-physical, such as gunboats or military patrols. These physical and non-physical barriers can be found all over the world. In our Philippine setting, we have the Cordillera region. This area has been isolated from the rest of Luzon for hundreds of years because of the Cordillera mountain range. This physical barrier has led to the preservation of unique cultural traits among the indigenous groups there, and then we also have the example of Basco, which is a town in Batanes. Because Basco is an island municipality, it has a small airstrip, and this limits the size of airplanes that could land there. So it only accommodates small planes, which means that traveling to and from Basco is limited. Consequently, trade and commerce are similarly limited. And lastly, we have the example of conflict-ridden areas. So regions that are experiencing conflict or unrest. These areas become uninhabitable, limiting the movement of people and the flow of goods and services. So, as you can see, physical barriers can limit the flow of people, goods, and services, which can result in social, economic, and political isolation. And this is similar to how globalization is a solid for barriers. It restricts and confines certain spaces. It limits what goes in and out of a certain space. Now, in addition to physical barriers, there are also non-physical barriers to globalization. These are abstract limitations that hinder the free flow of people, goods, and services. One example of this is legal restrictions. Take, for example, import quotas. These are government-imposed limits on the quantity of a particular good that can be imported into a country. So, import quotas limit the amount of foreign goods entering a market, thus protecting domestic industries from foreign competition. Another example is licensing requirements. Certain professions require licenses to practice. For example, doctors must obtain a medical license before they can practice medicine. And then we also have restrictions on foreign investments. Some countries limit the percentage of ownership that foreigners can have in their companies. And then we also have restrictions on labor mobility. Some countries limit the number of foreign workers who can enter their territory. Now, in the Philippines, we have restrictions on foreign ownership. The Constitution limits foreign ownership in certain sectors such as media and agriculture. And then we also have restrictions on labor mobility. We have limits on the number of foreign workers who can enter the Philippines. As you can see, these non-physical barriers can limit the flow of people, goods, and services, which can result in social, economic. Take, for example, the 1980s when the Philippine economy experienced a lot of problems. The economy was unstable, inflation was high, and there was a lot of unemployment. Despite these challenges, the Philippine government opened up the economy to foreign investments through the 1987 Constitution, which liberalized foreign investments. This allowed foreign companies to own a larger percentage of businesses in the Philippines. This opened up opportunities for economic growth and development. The service sector, for example, benefited greatly from this liberalization as more foreign companies set up operations in the country. This led to more job opportunities for Filipinos and the influx of foreign currency. Overall, the Philippine economy has benefited greatly from the liberalization of foreign investments. Okay, so now let's move on to the next metaphor. Globalization is liquid. And when we say that globalization is liquid, we're emphasizing its characteristic of being volatile, fluctuating, and unstoppable. So just like water that spills over its container, globalization overflows the boundaries of states, making them interconnected. Water is liquid. It flows and takes the shape of its container. This illustrates how globalization can adapt and spread to different contexts. It is formless and boundless. It surpasses geographical limitations. It is unstoppable. Like water that cannot be contained, globalization defies efforts to hold it back. States may try to regulate or restrict global processes, but ultimately they cannot prevent the flow of ideas, information, and people. Globalization is dynamic and ever-changing. Just as water changes its state from liquid to solid or gas, globalization constantly evolves. New technologies, communication, and transportation systems facilitate the rapid spread of global processes. Globalization is invasive and pervasive. Water seeps through cracks and crevices. Globalization similarly permeates every aspect of society. Economic, political, and cultural processes intertwine, influencing various aspects of daily life. It shapes interactions between individuals, communities, and nations. And, finally, water is essential for life. Globalization is equally fundamental to the contemporary world. In an increasingly interconnected world, understanding and navigating global processes is crucial. So, in our Philippine setting, we can see how globalization is liquid in many ways. First, we have technology. The Internet and social media have revolutionized communication and information sharing in the Philippines. Filipinos can connect with people worldwide instantly. The Internet has also made it easier for businesses to reach global markets. The business process outsourcing, BPO industry, for example, has boomed in the Philippines due to advancements in communication technology. This allows Filipinos to work for companies abroad without leaving the country. And then we also have the creative industries. Filipino artists, musicians, and filmmakers are gaining international recognition. Manny Pacquiao, for example, is a world-renowned boxer. Manny Pacquiao is a world-renowned boxer. Charisse Pempenko and Lea Salonga are internationally acclaimed singers. And then we also have global cuisines. Filipino cuisine has become popular worldwide. More and more restaurants are serving Filipino dishes and ingredients. And then we also have Jeepney TV. This is a phenomenon where Filipinos watch television shows from other countries. This is made possible by the availability of satellite TV and cable TV in many households in the Philippines. Jeepney TV reflects the Filipinos' fascination with foreign cultures and entertainment. So, as you can see, globalization is liquid in the Philippines. Technology has made communication and information sharing easier. Filipino talents and products have gained international recognition, and Filipino culture has become more visible on the global stage. The last metaphor that we're going to discuss is globalization is flows. And when we say that globalization is flows, we're emphasizing its homogenizing aspects. So just like water that flows from one place to another, globalization similarly spreads ideas, products, and cultures around the world. When water flows, it takes on the shape of its container. This shows how globalization adapts to local contexts while still maintaining its global character. And just like how water fills up any container, globalization similarly permeates every aspect of our lives. Water nourishes and sustains life. Globalization similarly connects and influences people worldwide. Water is constantly moving and changing. Globalization is similarly dynamic and evolving process. So, in our Philippine setting, we can see how globalization is flows in many ways. We have the example of fast food. Fast food chains like McDonald's and KFC have become popular in the Philippines. Their menus often include items that are adapted to local tastes. For example, McDonald's in the Philippines sells a tuna pie, which is a local favorite, and then we also have coffee. Coffee shops like Starbucks have become ubiquitous in the Philippines. The country is known to be one of the biggest consumers of coffee in the world. And then we also have malls. Mega malls have become popular in the Philippines. They offer a wide variety of goods and services under one roof. Malls have become a popular destination for shopping, dining, and socializing. And then we also have Jeepney TV. We've already talked about this, so let's move on to the next one. We have the example of call centers. The Philippines has a thriving call center industry. Many Filipinos work as customer service representatives for companies abroad. And then we also have English proficiency. The Philippines is known to be one of the most English-speaking countries in the world. This has been the result of decades of American influence in the country. And then we also have the fashion. Filipino fashion has been influenced by global trends. Many Filipinos follow international fashion icons and designers. Now, despite these examples, it's important to note that not everyone experiences globalization in the same way. There are some who benefit greatly from it, while others may face challenges. The impact of globalization can vary depending on a person's socioeconomic status, geographic location, and other factors. Some Filipinos, for example, may not have access to the internet or other technologies that facilitate globalization. Others may not be able to afford to travel or migrate to other countries. Nonetheless, globalization is a powerful force that shapes our world in many ways. Understanding its various manifestations can help us navigate the complexities of our interconnected world. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. I hope you learned something from it.